Hey folks, welcome back. You ever woken up and thought to yourself, oh boy, another day of being in my mid-20s. Oh boy, another day of being in my mid-20s, mid-20s, mid-20s. Another day of being in my mid-20s, 20s. Nothing quite like aging, huh? I'm hoping it stops eventually, but thus far, it's not looking good. But hey, I mean, if I can't reverse God's will, at least I can revisit my childhood by doing stuff like watching cartoons and pretending that everything's okay. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? I'll give you a hint. He's absorbent, yellow, and porous. Is he? SpongeBob SquarePants, of course. I mean, what other character can you think of that's porous? That's not an adjective that gets thrown around a lot, let's be real here. SpongeBob is undoubtedly one of the most culturally significant cartoons of all time. If you're around my age, I'm sure a sizable amount of your personality is entirely based on SpongeBob. And if you're not my age, I'm sure you know someone my age who you want to punch in the face, whether it be about SpongeBob or not. 2000s kids are very annoying. I don't think I can really put into words properly just how much of a stranglehold this little yellow son of a bitch had on pop culture. SpongeBob was the cartoon character of the early 2000s. And you know what that means? Capitalism. DVDs, clothes, toys, snack foods. If it existed, you could find Nickelodeon's Golden Boy on it. Get it? Golden Boy? Because he's yellow. Remember Aquapets? Stupid little pieces of plastic floating in water that made noise? I had one of these, but it was a SpongeBob one. Look at him there, floating in his little prison. But anyway, you know what comes next when I say the word capitalism. Video games. There were plenty of SpongeBob games. Super Sponge, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, the movie game, Lights, Camera, Pants, and of course, the magnum opus of SpongeBob games, Battle for Bikini Bottom. We all know about Battle for Bikini Bottom. I made a whole episode about it several decades ago where I talked about the 2020 remake, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. It wasn't perfect, and I'm pretty sure that my opinion was dampened by the fact that I played it on this piece of shit. But regardless, it was super cool to see a remake of this caliber, and honestly, it was cool to just see a brand new SpongeBob game in 2020. After the commercial success of Rehydrated, THQ Nordic gave the thumbs up to Purple Lamp Studios to make an all-new SpongeBob adventure. And in the year of our Lord 2023, a spiritual sequel to Battle for Bikini Bottom was released, SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake. Honestly, I was kind of hesitant when Cosmic Shake was announced. I mean, I think I was anyway. 2021 was a long time ago. I wasn't massively impressed with SSBBBR. I had a lot of fun with it, don't get me wrong, but I still think it left a lot to be desired. But that said, I am a sucker for the sponge. I guess you could say that I'm... SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake was released on January 31st, 2023 for PC, Switch, and for some reason only the last-gen consoles. That's fucking weird. I wonder why. Maybe it was too expensive? Who knows? So let's just hop right in, shall we? The title screen plays that song, huh? From the cartoon? Okay. I'll be the first to admit I'm an easy man to please, and you are currently looking at the face of a man who is pleased. The game begins with our heroes, SpongeBob and Patrick, on a trip to Glove World, the theme park from the TV show. Do I need to spell everything out for you? This mermaid lady, Madame Cassandra, who's very nice and not the main antagonist, shows up with her carriage full of magical, non-evil goodies. Cassandra sells the fellas a bottle of magic bubble soap that can create bubbles in pretty much any shape. After doing this for 3 hours, Patrick reads the label on the soap.
Property of King Neptune. Not for use by mortals. Use sparingly and with caution.
An interdimensional rift opens, sucking up many of Bikini Bottom's citizens and landmarks and plunging the city into a goopy, nonsensical Salvador Dali-esque state. Also, Patrick gets turned into a balloon. You know how it is. Madame Cassandra explains that the goop we see everywhere is cosmic jelly, a substance that keeps the universe in order. She tells S-Boy and P that if they want to restore Bikini Bottom and save their friends, they need to enter the many portals that have opened up all over town and collect cosmic jelly for her, and she has no other motives whatsoever. She puts SpongeBob in a cowboy costume, tells him to find the portal that fits said costume, and that's the plot in a nutshell. Or should I say, a conch shell. So stupid.
Magic conch shell? You mean like this?
So once you've got your stupid-ass motivation out of the way, it's time for the part that actually fucking matters. The gameplay, baby. Similar to Battle for Bikini Bottom, Cosmic Shake has SpongeBob traveling to different parts of Bikini Bottom. But due to the whole rift in the universe thing, each level has a wacky twist to it. You got Wild West Jellyfish Fields, where everything is cowboys, and there's a town called Manta Fe, which is very funny. I was gonna make a comment about how Manta Fe looks a lot like Deadeye Gulch from the SpongeBob Cowboy episode, but then I realized A, this is an alternate universe, and B, this is a SpongeBob game. So who fucking cares? After that, you got Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom, where alternate universe Squidward is directing a karate film with SpongeBob as the main character. Then it's Pirate Goo Lagoon, where a character named Admiral Prawn launches homemade pies at you. Oh, those pies weren't homemade. They were made in a factory. A bomb factory. They're bombs. Halloween Rock Bottom is rock bottom, but during Halloween. The prehistoric kelp forest, again, pretty self-explanatory. Although I like that SpongeBob and Patrick are suddenly only capable of speaking in caveman speech, like in SpongeBob Before Comedy.
Squidward, Banuga.
Porifera!
Then we got Medieval Sulfur Fields, followed by Jelly Glove World, which is just Glove World, only evil. After that, Sponge and Pat head back to Bikini Bottom, where they fight the final boss, a giant, corrupted monster version of Squidward being controlled by Madame Cassandra. After she's defeated, King Neptune offers to grant one wish, but before anyone is able to make said wish, Patrick says,
That was fun! I wish we could do it all over again!
which is so funny, and it's such a simple and on-brand way of making it so you can keep playing after beating the final boss. Like, I mean, they could have just done nothing at all, so. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. You can't beat the game if you don't even know how to play it. Cosmic Shake is, of course, a 3D platformer. SpongeBob can jump again. The possibilities are endless. No, but SpongeBob actually has a decent arsenal of moves, though they have to be unlocked as the game goes along. By default, all you can do is double jump, do the spinny jellyfish net attack, glide, ground pound, and cartwheel. But as the game goes along, you unlock new abilities. A karate kick that lets you fly towards enemies, a grappling hook, which is great. I'm a staunch believer that every game can be made better with a grappling hook. You get some freaky sneaky abilities to scare these spooky guys, a stronger version of the ground pound, which is super lame, and you get the ability to use a reef blower, like in that one episode with the... Since this game is, for all intents and purposes... Did you hear that? I said all intents and purposes instead of all intensive purposes. I do not wish to reveal how recently I learned how to properly say that phrase. Since this game is basically a sequel to Battle for Bikini Bottom, it would probably be safe to assume that it's structurally the same. But that's not necessarily the case. Battle for Bikini Bottom went for the sort of Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64 style of collect-a-thon, where each level has a main collectible that are used to open doors to new levels. In that case, it was golden spatulas. Cosmic Shake, on the other hand, is more linear. The levels have more of a beginning, middle, and end structure. There are lots of collectibles, but they're not required to actually complete the game. You collect doubloons in each level that unlock costumes for SpongeBob, which you can buy with the Cosmic Jelly you collect throughout the game. And might I add, I love Battle for Bikini Bottom, but Cosmic Jelly is a way better collectible than fucking shiny objects. Like, holy shit, man. What kind of time constraint were they under when they came up with that, honestly? All that said, though, Cosmic Shake isn't brought down by its linearity. Each level is full of secrets, branching paths, and little mini-segments where the game changes up the gameplay a little bit. A few examples of the seahorse riding segments in the Wild West level and the medieval level, the boulder riding parts in the prehistoric level, and the auto-scrolling parts in the karate level. Honestly, despite me being an unashamed collect-a-thon enjoyer, I almost think Cosmic Shake's level design fits the style of game a little better than Battle for Bikini Bottom with its Banjo/Mario/Spyro design. Because the thing with Battle for Bikini Bottom is that it still has that sort of start here, go here, end here level design. There are forks and secret areas where you can get hidden golden spatulas, but the levels are still very linear. That sense of exploration isn't quite as present in Battle for Bikini Bottom as it is in, say, Banjo or Spyro. Sorry to keep using the same examples, I'm very stupid. Cosmic Shake, on the other hand, lends itself better to the level design because the collectibles are more of an additional achievement that complements the main objective of beating the level. Alright, let's pump the brakes here, okay? We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. If you've ever watched this show before, I'm sure you'll know that I'm incapable of structuring my thoughts unless I break everything up into little segments. Even when I'm talking about a SpongeBob SquarePants video game. So, as usual, let's start off with the negativity and end on the positive. And, SpongeBob Cosmic Shake is a video game. Wait, did I already? It's one of those games that grew on me a lot as I played it, and I ended up liking a lot of things about it, but let me tell you, it's not perfect. To my surprise, it still retains some of the stupid bullshit from Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. One of my original issues with Rehydrated was the music. Not only did they reuse tracks in multiple levels, but they also didn't loop any of the music, so when it stops, you just have to sit through a few seconds of silence, and it's very uncomfortable. The fact is, though, no matter how beloved Battle for Bikini Bottom is to a lot of people, myself included, you gotta keep in mind that it was made in an era where licensed games were basically made with the exclusive purpose of making money. I'm not necessarily defending cutting corners like that, but I think you can understand why it happened in the original game. And yeah, I wish they fixed it in the remake, but they didn't. Life goes on. Frankly, I'm lucky that they even remade that game at all, so I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. What I will lose sleep over, however, is the music in Cosmic Shake. Now granted, in this game they don't reuse tracks, or at least as far as I can tell they don't, but the music still doesn't loop properly. I don't know, man. Feels kind of lazy to me. I mean, I don't know much about game design, music composition, or spending money responsibly, but I find it hard to believe that writing some looping music would have put this game over budget. Another little issue my ears had with this game is the dialogue, and don't get me wrong, this game has great writing, and I'll get into that later. But this is one of those games where the characters are constantly talking. SpongeBob's always cracking jokes. Or should I say, crackin' jokes. Patrick quips, the background characters say stuff, there's a lot of talking. And it's fine, you know, I like it, but the main issue is that the characters constantly talk over each other or get interrupted.
The Krusty Krab pizza is the...
I also fixed your kitchen sink!
Like, guys, I know this is a video game based on a comedy series. Obviously, you're gonna want the characters to be making jokes. But you think you maybe could have put a little bit of effort into preventing them from overlapping each other or something? The funny thing is, too, sometimes the dialogue is activated by reaching a certain part in the game, but then it gets interrupted by another piece of dialogue.
Must be where the king of sand lives!
Oh, you can hold this one, Patrick.
Maybe SpongeBob could have just, like, skipped the sock joke that time. Could have let Patrick finish his sentence, perhaps? But enough complaining about sounds. I can get past that. My biggest issue overall with this game is that it takes a pretty long time before it's actually fun, in my opinion. By the end of the game, SpongeBob is a lot of fun to control because he has a ton of moves in his arsenal, and a lot of the level design elements and enemies complement his abilities. But before you get any of his set abilities, the game kind of drags a little. Wild West Jellyfish Fields, the first level, is kind of lame, honestly. It's mostly just jumping, seahorse riding, which basically plays itself, fighting an absolute maximum of 3 different types of enemies, and holding a button to drain cacti, as if it's any more difficult to hold a button than to press it. Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom is definitely better, but I gotta admit, I was still kinda eh. Also, you still can't press a button to snap the camera behind SpongeBob. Like, guys, come on. This game came out in 1996. It's older than me. You've had plenty of time. But you know what, enough complaining, because honestly, this game is pretty good. The gameplay takes a bit to really get going, but once it does, Cosmic Shake is a lot of fun. SpongeBob unlocks a new ability in each level that expands the gameplay, especially since you can go back to the levels after beating them and find new stuff that wasn't there the first time. I also really like how after you beat each level, Bikini Bottom has new stuff that requires use of the ability you just got. My favorite example is after Halloween Rock Bottom, where you get the ability to scare the anglerfish aliens, and suddenly there's a bunch of them floating around Bikini Bottom. The combat isn't anything to write home about, but it's pretty fleshed out. Each level introduces a new enemy type that have to be fought in special ways. You got the guys that spawn more enemies, the little rolly guys that you have to karate kick, and my personal favorite, the tennis-playing aliens that you have to volley attacks back like in Zelda. I absolutely love that shit, man. Every game should have enemies that you have to play tennis with. Are you guys taking notes here? I was also pleased to find that this game isn't a total and complete cakewalk. Don't get me wrong, it's not hard by any stretch of the imagination, but the combat requires you to be alert and aware of what's going on, especially if you have a lot of guys to deal with at once. SpongeBob's standard attack isn't the kind of move that you can just button mash and rely on it taking everyone out. It has a bit of a delay to it that opens you up to attacks. It's kind of like Simon's Whip in Castlevania. That's right, folks, I just compared a SpongeBob game to Castlevania. I wouldn't subscribe to me either. The gameplay is fine, whatever, but what this game does best is the visuals, writing, and level design. For starters, this game is hilarious. It very seldom misses with its humor. I mean, sure, it's a SpongeBob game. Obviously, it was gonna have some good jokes, but I don't think I was prepared for the sheer amount of times this game made me laugh out loud.
Whoa! I don't know where all this trash came from, but I do love to pick things up. Plus, it'll give me a chance to work with Bikini Bottom's finest, the Garbage Men.
I can see my house from here! No, that's different rock.
Check out my new ride. It helps when I need to rest my peg leg.
You can tell that the development team have a lot of love for SpongeBob as a series because they filled the game with not only references, but also gags taken directly from the TV show. Some of the loading screens are time cards with the French narrator from the cartoon. At certain points, the game goes into those hand-painted, hyper-realistic close-up stills. And look, there's sea bears! I lost my fucking mind when I saw the sea bears. I'm not gonna mention anything about drawing circles on the ground because I said that I was done making references. I really want to, but I'm not gonna do it. This game doesn't have as many levels as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but the levels it has are a lot more fleshed out and interesting. Jellyfish Fields, God bless it, is just, you know, Jellyfish Fields. Cosmic Shake's Wild West Jellyfish Field, on the other hand, has Manta Fey, Mrs. Puff's Seahorde Riding Ranch, train chase segment. It's awesome. Each level feels like its own episode of the cartoon. My favorite aesthetically is probably the creepy glove world where Lord Glovington, or whatever his name is, kidnaps Patrick and pastes his face over a bunch of pictures of SpongeBob. Like, not to be cliched, but I really was reminded of Silent Hill 3 in this level. Bikini Bottom, Silent Hill. Bikini Hill? That doesn't really sound like anything. Silent Bottom. That's so much worse. The multiverse concept works so well for SpongeBob because each level has alternate universe versions of the characters who don't know who SpongeBob is and are mostly exaggerated versions of themselves. Squidward's a pretentious film director, Pearl is a princess in the medieval level. The villain of Wild West Jellyfish Fields is the red-handed bandit. Not to ruin the surprise, but it's just Mr. Krabs. I also really like how Patrick is incorporated in this game. He floats alongside SpongeBob throughout the entire game, and he functions as SpongeBob's companion character along the lines of Cappy from Mario Odyssey, Kazooie from Banjo-Kazooie, Navi from Zelda, Tattle from Zelda, Midna from Zelda, Fee from Zelda, the Minish Cap from Zelda, the King of Red Lions from Zelda, Celia from... He makes jokes, points at objectives, sometimes he brings you underwear to restore your health. It's awesome. They could have just made a new character to follow around and help SpongeBob, but instead they gave him Patrick, a character with whom he has 20 plus years of chemistry, and wouldn't you believe it, it works out perfectly. Like, remember the companion character from Kirby and the Forgotten Land? I don't even remember that motherfucker's name because he wasn't interesting at all. And on that note, I love the character design in this game. You know how a lot of the time when a 3D game is made based on a 2D cartoon, you end up with Max Headroom-esque sci-fi nightmares the likes of Man We're Never Meant to Comprehend? I hate that shit. I still have the occasional nightmare about the Simpsons hit and run cutscenes. With Cosmic Shake though, I feel like the developers put a lot of effort into making the characters look like they belong in this 3D world. They took what makes the character appealing in 2D and applied it to the 3D models. SpongeBob's model looks fantastic. His little idle dance looks great, and he has a ton of fun little animations he does if you let him stand still for long enough. And this is a small thing, but like, look at how good he looks when he turns. His whole body curves like a sponge. I mentioned this before, but SpongeBob gets a ton of costumes throughout the game, and they're all awesome. You got the Quickster, the Goofy Goober hat, the helmet that he wears on the cover of Battle for Bikini Bottom. Art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? I love it. I love costumes. My only beef is that Patrick doesn't change costume, because a lot of the costumes would have been great if Patrick had an accompanying look. Like, imagine if you put on the Quickster outfit and Patrick became the elastic waistband. Like, come on guys, it's common sense. If I figured it out, you guys could have figured it out. Overall, SpongeBob Cosmic Shake is a video game. I went into this game with pretty low expectations. I wasn't expecting it to be bad necessarily, but like, let's be real here. It's a SpongeBob game. If it was shit, nobody would have batted an eye. And maybe it's because I had relatively low expectations, but I ended up actually really liking this game. It's funny, polished, the levels are visually diverse and well designed. The gameplay, if a bit clunky at times, is a lot of fun, especially the further you progress in the game. Honestly, if THQ Nordic keeps greenlighting future SpongeBob platformers, I'll be a happy camper, let me tell you. And, best of all, they actually got Clancy Brown for this one, so we don't have to have terrifying imitation crabs like in Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Ahoy there, Patrick!
Hate! And that's SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. Say what you will about the future, but a pretty decent SpongeBob game came out in 2023. Things could be a lot worse. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, licking doorknobs is illegal on other planets. Ha! I made another SpongeBob joke! No one can stop me!